All right. I wanted to start by introducing myself. My name is Azmaira Alibhai. I'm the Faith and Ecosystems Coordinator at the United Nations Environment Program's Faith for Earth Coalition. It's a mouthful, and it just goes to show just how much work we have to get done within the United Nations Environment Program with faith actors. Now, I wanted to unpack today this conversation on vulnerability. We have one of our speakers joining us. If you don't mind having a seat there, and if you could kindly pull up another chair. In this introductory part of the session, I wanted to start by unpacking what we mean by vulnerability. Now, Africa is considered one of the most vulnerable continents to climate change due to its high reliance on rain-fed agriculture. A significant portion of the population is engaged in climate-sensitive livelihoods, and there's a lower adaptive capacity linked to economic and institutional factors. When we talk about the climate challenges in Africa, let's talk about what we really mean, and this is what we really mean. When we start talking about solutions, let the solutions address these areas. Overall, climate change poses a severe threat to Africa's sustainable development, impacting various aspects of life, from agriculture to water resources to the health and economic stability of communities and societies. Adaptation and mitigation efforts are crucial to address these challenges. Now, religion. What is the role of religion and religious actors? I won't dwell too much on this because this esteemed panel sitting to my left, to my right, is going to explore each of these points in more detail, giving practical examples of what their work looks like, what best practice looks like in their respective contexts. The first is a moral and ethical frameworks. Faith-based organizations, actors, and leaders provide this guidance to communities and societies. They're able to mobilize communities and raise awareness about critical issues, to bring language that is accessible to everyday communities based on their existing relationship with them. They have the ability to mobilize groups to advocate for key policy priorities relating on any number of things, from the rights of waste pickers that are part of their congregations, to the effects of flooding in their local communities. And last but not least, to use their institutional setups to provide practical action to build resilience. And with that, colleagues and friends, I'm happy to turn over to our first speaker today, who's going to be speaking about how faith-based institutions can provide solutions to environmental challenges. Mr. Huluf will set the scene. Mr. Huluf, I wonder if you can begin by framing this issue for us.
Thank you very much, and I want to bring greetings from the Interreligious Council of, from the African Council of Religious Leaders, ACRL, to every one of you, and we are grateful for being invited here. At the moment, today in Africa, there is a lot of, or huge climate-induced human suffering and migration that we have been hearing about the whole day, children, women, and so on. Like 7 million people were displaced in Africa due to climate-related disasters in 2021, according to the internal displacement tracker. So this is a serious problem, and we can look at this problem in relation to other vulnerabilities that my sister has already mentioned, like conflict, ethnic, religious, political, and also normal economic kind of challenges that increase or compound the vulnerability of people in Africa. So in terms of religious institutions or interreligious platforms in the continent, have moral foundations, teachings where human value, human dignity is the foundation, and religious institutions are also present where people are displacing from and where people are displaced to. wherever the people go, religious leaders by default are transboundary. They are beyond the boundary. You can find Muslim leaders in every part of the country or in every part of the continent. You can find Christian leader everywhere. These kind of institutions belong to all being displaced and to those who are hosting the displaced. And then climate and environmental stewardship is also the moral teaching of every religion. Muslim, Catholic, Christian, all the Christians, Hindu, Sikh, I don't want to go into details, but there are teachings because our nature, our life is related to the other life. This is moral foundation. Even the teaching that, for example, if we look at from Christian perspective, go and multiply. This meaning is not to go and produce children, go and take care of the land, the earth, the nature, fecundate, impact, have a positive impact. And in Africa, we also have Ubuntu, and in Ethiopia, for example, we call Sebawinnet. In Ubuntu is we are related, and there is no migrant. Basically, we are all human family. This moral foundation is deeply embedded in it, and ACRL promotes this through projects in partnership with like Bread for the World. We have a project in the Sahel region where we promote agriculture, where we focus on the restorative kind of agriculture where we restore biodiversity, inclusion, we emphasize inclusion of women, and we reduce vulnerability. And we also, if we look at the Africa now, look at the Sahel region where there are other type of conflicts like religious, fundamentalism, political kind of thing, then compounded with. And most of the time, these conflicts are compounded with the climate displacements, like in Nigeria, the farmers and the other communities who graze, who depend in the Western Africa or Central Africa and so on. He thought because of the drought and different time migration and so on, our family migrated from, he said he had family members in Nigeria, in Chad, and all that. And all the way even, he said some of his people are even in Eritrea. And so I was reflecting about this, and we are now waking up to the reality, but it was there, and we need to take it seriously. And in the process, there is a moral question, human suffering and agony, children, women, there is also conflict, people die, kill each other, and there is trauma of deprivation, trauma of insecurity, permanent intergenerational kind of insecurity. And children miss schools, women suffer, and then that deprives us, the quality of life and the future is denied. And the African Council of Religious Leaders takes this as a moral issue, and in our new strategic plan, we have embedded this as our core issue in the sacred shared value, and this is part and parcel of our commitment. I don't know if I can give some recommendations going forward. I think one thing we need to emphasize is that we need to listen to the ground. We need to bring these people, we need to be with them, we need to help them speak, we need to like HIV time, we should not be spending time to show that this issue, urgent issue, does not become elite luxury issue slowly. It should not become like a career. It should be lived experience of people. They should be here. We should be listening to them. Before conferences, listening campaigns or rounds must be made from the people, and we should come here with their voices. How do women experience? How do children experience? What are the traumas, interethnic tensions, and so on? And religious leaders need to be empowered to welcome people who are displaced. Plus, we also need to combine science and religious values to help Earth to regenerate. And also we should advocate for mixed, equitable economy so that people don't rely only on rainfall and something. We should have affirmative development so that inclusive development in African countries that can help diversify livelihoods and support people where they are. And we should also, as a matter of urgency, we should bring collaboration to center, and we should operate collaboratively with a sense of urgency in every day. We should have programs that touch base at the lived experience, at the community level, and then bring that to the policy, and policy down to the people again. We need to have praxis approach, and collaboration is still not commensurate to the needs and urgency of the problem, in our view. And ACRL is ready to as a biggest interfaith platform, we are ready to collaborate. And maybe one important point I want to raise, we need to listen to non-religious, other like non-Christian, Muslim, or other organized. We have traditional African concepts. We need to listen to them. I mentioned last year here, there is a Ghanaian proverb where communities say, when the last tree dies, the last man dies. There are a lot of wisdoms in traditional communities, in remote communities, on the peripheries. There are dying languages, there are dying concepts. We need to also dig out on that and appropriately probably translate into to doable approaches. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Huluf. I think that adequately sets the stage for the conversation that we're having today. There's one point that I want to pick up on, well, two, that I hope you've noticed that we're thinking and doing, that we've thought about what this strategic role of faith actors are, and there's a very clear role from one of the biggest interfaith organizations calling for proactive action from its community, its members. But the point that I want to pick up on is this link between environment and social protection. What is it? Have you had a chance to think about what that looks like? In 2015, under the visionary approach of Pope Francis, Laudato Si was born. It's the papal encyclical calling for hope for our common home. In Laudato Si, Pope Francis emphasizes the interconnectedness of environment and social issues. It calls for the term there is integral ecological conversion. And that's how you can address both social issues and the environment. It highlights the cry for the earth as well as the cry for the poor. It urges for swift action on climate change and social inequality. How? Through its institutions. The encyclical promotes the virtue of ethic, of care, of kinship, moving beyond a duty-based approach to stewardship. In a similar vein, the United Nations Environment Programme launched Al-Mizan, a covenant for the earth. It's an effort it's a sister to Laudato Si, aiming to restate the principles in Islam that govern the protection of nature in a form that meets current challenges. So in Al-Mizan, we speak about waste, not only water waste, but also waste management. Ask yourselves, what does the Quran have to say about waste management? What does the Quran have to say about air pollution? We've had top Islamic scholars come to the table and say, these are the ways in which we can use these principles and apply them to our everyday life without taking away the essence of the faith. It examines, Al-Mizan, the ethics behind social patterning of human existence and inquires how they can be brought to everyday life in harmony with the heartbeat of the world. And with that, let's move to Ms. Nikita and Mr. Ambrose to speak more about these contextual approaches, looking more at in-country experiences. Over to you.
Good evening. Thank you so much. My name is Nikita Shiel-Rolle, and we prepared a statement that we will read because it does cover everything we want to share, and hopefully it will be the basis for a fruitful conversation. So, excellencies, distinguished delegates, faith leaders, and global citizens, we meet today at a critical inflection point in human history. The climate crisis is no longer a distant environmental concern. It's a present global emergency that touches every aspect of our existence: our health, our economies, our food systems, our security, our peace. And while all are affected, it is those who contribute the least who suffer the most. Africa, the Caribbean, the small island developing states, communities who have historically borne the weight of exploitation and extraction, now standing at the front lines of a crisis they did not create. But let me be clear, climate change is not a crisis of the global south. It is a global crisis that demands a global solution. It requires the best science, supported by equitable technology transfer, and it also demands something deeper: transformation of the heart. It demands that we see each other fully, that we hold the reality of another as equal to our own. This is not only science, this is spirituality. This is ethics. This is the golden rule. Interfaith communities have a critical role to play. We remain the trusted spaces where people gather, where truth is spoken, where care and compassion are practiced, and where unity across divides can be nurtured. We must recognize that beyond carbon cycles and emission reduction targets, climate solutions require love, care, and compassion. They require that we do things differently. We cannot address the climate crisis while clinging to the systems of oppression that birthed it. Systems built on shame, blame, guilt, and the ruthless pursuit of capital gains above all else. The rise in atmospheric carbon dioxide is not a scientific anomaly. It is the direct result of our industrialization, our drive for unchecked modernization, and an economic system rooted in extractivism and exploitation. Unless we face this uncomfortable truth, we will continue to propose broad brush, externally driven solutions that miss the mark and fail the communities they claim to serve. Our local communities, particularly in Africa, the Caribbean, and across the diaspora, are enduring the droughts, the floods, the hurricanes, the fires. They're facing the collapse of their ecosystems and livelihoods. Across Africa and the Caribbean, we face critical and widening data gaps in our understanding of hydrological and meteorological cycles and the accelerating shifts driven by climate change. These gaps severely limit our ability to make informed, timely, and locally relevant decisions. At the same time, we are witnessing unprecedented rates of biodiversity loss, threatening the very ecosystems that sustain our food, water, and cultural heritage. Our oceans, vast, life-giving, and integral to our economies, remain largely unexplored, undervalued, and misunderstood, particularly in the context of African and Caribbean realities. This lack of knowledge is not just a scientific void, it's a systemic barrier to resilience, sovereignty, and self-determined development. Addressing these data and knowledge deficiencies is not optional. It is foundational to climate justice, economic transformation, and survival of our people and planet. The absence of community-scale data, whether hydrometric, agricultural, or oceanic, makes it nearly impossible to accurately track the changes taking place at the grassroots level, limiting communities' ability to be proactive in their adaptation action. This persistent data gap silences local realities in national and global policy conversations, leaving frontline communities invisible in the very debates that decide their futures. To change this, we must urgently invest in community science, an approach that centers local knowledge holders, traditional wisdom, farmers, fishers, and indigenous communities as co-creators and custodians of the data and solutions we need. Upskilling local communities in data literacy, environmental monitoring, and policy advocacy is not charity. It is a necessary act of justice that enables communities to become equitable, informed participants in the decisions that shape their lives. Faith-based communities, deeply trusted and rooted in these local realities, can become powerful platforms for this kind of skills transfer, dialogue, and empowerment. They can bridge science, spirituality, and social action, fostering spaces where ancestral wisdom meets modern technology and where solutions are co-created from the ground up, authentic, just, and rooted in the lived experiences that most impacted by climate change. The absence of community-specific data, whether hydrometric, agricultural, or oceanic, not only obscures the realities of those on the front line, it perpetuates systems of exclusion that have long denied African communities, both on the continent and across the sixth region, their rightful place at the decision-making table. The African descendants living in the Caribbean and other low-lying small island developing states are now facing the compounding impacts of the climate crisis, where rising seas, intensified storms, and disappearing livelihoods threaten to erase their communities entirely. These are the same communities whose ancestors were stolen, trafficked, and exploited to build the wealth of the global north. This truth demands that African nations rise to the moral and historical responsibility of ensuring that the descendants of the sixth region can repatriate to their ancestral lands with dignity, grace, and purpose, not as victims, but as dignified sons and daughters of the soil. African governments must lead by example, creating pathways that honor the right of return and providing the infrastructure, policies, and social protections necessary for climate migrants of African descent to rebuild their lives on the continent.
Continuing. Distinguished guests, delegates, faith leaders, and global citizens. To the global north, we say, your duty does not stop at climate finance. You must engage in full spectrum reparatory justice, recognizing that true repair is both economic and spiritual. It is both monetary and restorative of land, identity, and belonging. We must pursue the moral issue of reparations holistically, which includes not only the payment of monies, but also the repatriation of individuals, lands, and properties stolen or lost to systems of oppression. As a global grassroots movement, we place the right of return at the center of our demands, and we call on the African Union, the governments of the Caribbean, and the developed nations of the world to support and invest in projects of green and blue development that are designed, led, and implemented by Africans, both at home and in the diaspora. This is how we build climate-resilient futures, grounded in justice, dignity, and self-determination. At the heart of the climate crisis lies a crisis of finance, where those who have contributed the least to the global emissions are locked out of access to resources needed to build resilience, adapt, and lead their own solutions. This injustice is most painfully felt by African women, girls, and youth, who not only bear the disproportionate burden of the climate crisis, but are also systematically excluded from the financing structures that dominate the global climate discourse. Climate finance must be transformative, not transactional. It must prioritize direct investments in African-led, community-driven climate solutions, particularly those spearheaded by women and youth, whose knowledge, leadership, and innovations have long been at the center of resilience building on the ground. We continue to hear the excuse of high risk when it comes to investing in African nations, in African entrepreneurs, in African women. This narrative must be dismantled. The true risk is not in investing in African solutions. The true risk is in continuing to ignore, sideline, and underfund the very communities that hold the keys to localized, scalable, and culturally appropriate climate action. Global financial institutions, development banks, and climate funds must overhaul their models to ensure that African youth, women, and grassroots innovators are not merely included, but prioritized as agents of climate solutions, guaranteeing access to patient capital, grants, concessional loans, and insurance mechanisms for these groups is essential if we are to build a climate-resilient Africa from the ground up. Investing in African women, youth, and communities is not just a moral imperative, it is the smartest climate investment the world can make. Similarly, our organization has experienced firsthand the systemic barriers to financing that continue to undermine African-led climate solutions. We developed and presented a flagship initiative, Climate Resilient Green Economic Communities, garden communities, green garden communities, a visionary project endorsed by both the African Union and the government of Ethiopia. Climate resilient green economic communities, green garden communities, is designed to accelerate the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals while advancing the implementation of the African Union Agenda 2063, creating pathways for climate resilient, just and regenerative green economies led by African communities themselves. Yet, despite its alignment with continental and global priorities, the persistent inability to secure sustainable and flexible financing has stalled critical progress. This is not just a delay, it is the loss of exponential impact, the silencing of African innovation, and the denial of urgently needed solutions that could transform lives, protect ecosystems, and chart new futures for generations to come. Building sustainable green and blue economies is not a luxury. It is an act of justice, dignity, and survival. The blue economy, fisheries, aquaculture, renewable ocean energy, sustainable tourism is critical for the prosperity of both Africa and the sixth region. True sustainable development must be community-led, culturally anchored, and rooted in indigenous and local knowledge systems. Technology transfer must be decolonized and democratized. Communities must be knowledgeable creators and decision makers, not passive recipients of external aid. As as faith-based organs and ethic institutions, it is our desire to see the human family united and at peace. This can only happen if justice is secured. The inclusion of the African Union in the G20 and the presidency of South Africa is an opportunity to make this change of a new dispensation as peaceful and as civilized as possible through honest discussions and agreements. This will require the cooperation of all nations, but especially the developed nations. As faith-based organs and ethical institutions, we are confident that justice will be provided, if not by man, then by the Almighty Creator himself. And let us not forget the deep colonial legacy at the root of this crisis. The climate crisis is a byproduct of systems of exploitation and crimes against humanity. The African Union's theme of reparations is not only timely, it is necessary. It is a truth. It is reconciliation. It is healing. Because when the seas rise 25 feet above the heads of families in the Caribbean, when homes are washed away, when mothers drown saving their children, these are not abstract losses. They are the compounded injustices of slavery, colonialism, and now climate destruction. Reparations must be understood not only as economic redress, but as a right to return, a right to dignity, a right to rebuild on one's own terms. African governments must create clear, compassionate pathways for the people of African descent, especially those on the front lines of climate collapse, to repatriate to their ancestral lands. This is reparative climate justice, and it is a debt that is both ethical and economic. It is a debt owed not only by African nations, but by the global North, whose wealth and systems of comfort are built on the backs of those they exploited. Truth is not soft, it is hard. It is accountability. It is saying we acknowledge that the wealth we enjoy today, the disposable incomes, the stable institutions were built on the crimes against African peoples. And it is saying, we are sorry, please forgive us, let us walk forward together. This is the spirit of true climate justice. It is not only about emissions reduction, it is about justice, morality, and peace. We commend Ethiopia and the African Union for their leadership in advancing the climate-resilient green economic strategy, the Green Legacy Initiative, and the climate-resilient green economic communities, green garden communities approach. But the task ahead requires boldness, a shift to organic, regenerative agriculture and aquaculture, the eradication of plastic pollution, particularly in our oceans, a commitment to community science, ocean stewardship, and cultural restorations. Colleagues, let us remember, agriculture, ocean stewardship, and indigenous knowledge are not the past, they are the future. There can be no digital, industrial, or economic revolution if our land, water, and people are dying. The G20 must act with integrity and courage, ensuring equitable climate finance, technology transfer, and reparative action for Africa and its diaspora. Let us act with love, with honesty, with humility, knowing that we are all connected in this web of life. Let us build the green and the blue economies of tomorrow on foundation of justice, healing, and peace. This is our message. This is our truth. Let us walk it together. I thank you.
I would like this mic to reach Mr. Jaswinder, who's our next panel speaker. But as we do that, the mic will go from one participant, one member of the audience to the next. If there's an element of the first three panelists' interventions that resonated with you, and you would like to share that, I welcome you to do that in 30 seconds, very briefly. So I'll start with Anastasia, and the mic should go around and reach Mr. Jaswinder.
Work for Africa, and I'm going to try in 30 minutes. I don't know how. My name is Francoise Nwabufo. I come from a very local community in Yaoundé, and I've been working with children and their parents, especially mothers, on these environmental issues, from training them on growing their own manure so they can plant their fruit, to the post-harvest waste prevention. And so I started working with the children, and I saw that I have to bring their parents in. And when I say parents, it's mothers that gives their time. And now we are trying to do our experimental farm again. And what we harvest sometimes from the farm, we use it to prepare enriched pap, because we transform that pap into pap powder. So we use it to give back the children, because most of them are malnourished. And this year, since February, we were able to get some small support to give the parents food every month. It is just terrible what they are going through. So what we encourage them to do is they are farming on vegetables. And so we give them some cereals, corn, cassava, these, so that they can cook, but at the same time, they grow their vegetables. I just want to say that it's a very huge work. And at the same time, in the educational aspect, we are doing basic literacy with them, because some of these parents cannot even write and speak. And if you don't teach them, when you come to teach them, you have to do natural manure, you pick this, how will you speak? And they are somehow stigmatized because they cannot socialize, they speak only their dialect. So we study basically. So I'm engaging, I'm supporting and integrating the holistic aspect of working with families in the community, from the grassroots right up. And I want to say it's an elaborate work. And we are tired of these organizations that come and say, we want to work with you just on this aspect. It will not work with such families in the community. We have to take, and as you take them along, you keep seeing that there is a need that arises, there's a need that arises. You will not say, oh, our organization does not take care of this. We don't even have funding. We just have spontaneous support, but we are able to carry them. So it's a very huge work for us. And I'm glad that we embrace it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In 20 seconds, I would say this was the best enriching presentation. You people have included and instilled every aspect of the environment. I don't think there is anything else that can be added. To me, it looks that you have really worked hard and looked into human resources, forestry, oceans, and everything. Thank you so much. It was very beautiful. I'm really touched. Thank you.
Okay, if I have to add something. Yeah, no, just I want to highlight one thing is there is a word, courage. He mentioned courage, that G20 should have courage. We also, when G20 and African Union will have courage, if its people have courage and talk. If I go home and talk to my people, leaders, town council, students, I have students at university, and talk about this, write articles, that is my job. In my family, they will have courage. They will see that We have people behind. Thank you.
Mine is probably negative, and that'll be, I am still not convinced that Africa needs reparations.
So, Hatim Al-Hadi from the Baha'i International Community. Really enlightening presentation. I have 3 words to say. The first one is unity. As you identified, faith-based communities, they have in common the sacredness of nature. So no one faith-based community cannot work alone. It's a collective effort. We need to work together, open our doors to one another. The second word is learning. This is a complex issue. We need to approach it with an attitude of learning, with a lot of humility. And the third one is sharing. It's with that humility that I would like to share with you BIC.org, our website, One Planet, One Habitation. Basically, this is a collection of grassroots efforts for saving or activating community-based efforts for saving the environment that we'd like to share with all humility.
All right, thank you so much. I'm Immanuel, and I am currently representing the Ethiopian World Federation, the Dr. Malaku Bayan Association, and I happen to be the recording corresponding secretary. And I would like to start with Mr. Huluf's comments, and I do understand important factors on internal displacement due to climate change, and social campaigns that should be run before conducting such discussion panels, which means directly involving the community. Then you get to speak for that community, and you do have to interact with that community first, then hold these discussion panels. All right, so back to Nikita and the executive director, President Ambrose King. I was thinking, what are the odds of us requiring repatriation? What if the climate becomes climate resilience in this current age, as we've seen it, how confident are we that everyone is safe? So what are the odds that we are required to repatriate, especially African descents that are located within the Caribbean? So we should understand that we require reparation as well as repatriation. Reparation in terms of monetary funds that are not related to debt, but in response to help Africans achieve the best level they could. All right, and let me make one last suggestion. In terms of President Ambrose King's, EWF President Ambrose King's comments on green gardens, we should adopt that blueprint to all communities. Just like we need basketball courts in all our communities, we do require gardens in our community, and that is a positive for me. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you're doing, and I so appreciate it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad I've finally got the mic. Distinguished leaders and my very dear ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. I also greet you with the traditional Sikh greeting, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. At the outset, I bring you all fraternal felicitations from my mentor and Sikh spiritual leader, Professor Pai Sahib Bhai Mohinder Singh, OBE, KSG from Birmingham, United Kingdom. He has been instrumental in forming the Sikh Council of Africa, which I represent today, and guiding me on matters of the faith. Pai Sahib Ji recently launched the Peace Charter for Forgiveness and Reconciliation in Europe and North America. We look forward to launching the same program in Africa in the near future. I must congratulate the organizers of this beautiful conference, the G20 Interfaith Forum Association, URI, and all the organizers. And I would like to thank my brother, Ambassador Musi, for his constant graciousness. As faith leaders, we have gathered at this summit to address, amongst other issues, the critical crisis of environmental degradation and climate change. The Sikh Council of Africa is a networking body of Sikhs in Africa, spanning in 16 countries with 62 institutions or gurdwaras working with it. It is an active member of the Africa Union Interfaith Dialogue Forum and has a seat on the Africa Council of Religious Leaders. My duty at this juncture is to give you the 550-year-old Sikh Dharam perspective on the planet and the environment. Tremendous progress has been made by the G20 nations, the UNEP and other world agencies in combating the climate challenge. Targets have been set and some milestones are being achieved in the world with regards to emission pollution and renewable energies. The organizations and governments tackling this challenge have engaged think tanks of experts and professionals to assist in policy making and implementation of programs. But what are the ethos and values that are followed when these decisions are made and these policies are formulated? Do they all think selflessly about the planet? Do they all feel the personal responsibility and love for nature? Or are some influenced by socio-economic and political factors? To address these issues, an inward shift is also needed. Faith traditions, philosophy, and indigenous communities can play a crucial role in fostering a shared culture of respect for nature. And that is in line with the theme of the conference, which was highlighted outside, which says, bringing faith and policy together. To overcome our existing inertia, we need to water the seeds of a quiet revolution by recognizing that for deep and lasting change, the human mind is our most effective, renewable, and sustainable resource. As per our Guru, we are the custodians of the planet, as God has made us sovereigns of the 8.4 million species inhabiting over land and sea. We are the sovereigns, as humans possess the most intelligence of all these species. The wellspring of the Sikh ethos lies in its worldview. This is enshrined in the opening verse by Guru Nanak in our holy scripture of Ek Onkar. Ik refers to the numerical number 1 and is followed by an expression of its creation with boundless diversity. Being a monotheistic religion, it evokes a sacred oneness which permeates and holds together a lovingly created and harmoniously sustained universe, where all is related and interdependent. The planets, the solar system, the galaxies are all synchronized in harmony and in tandem, working in mechanical perfection to the millisecond. Similarly, the 8.4 million species on the planet are interdependent. The 21st century has seen human beings getting closer than ever before. Our populations are increasing and our resources are dwindling. All of us are now living in a global village, and we too are interdependent. Essentially, the Sikh Dharam calls on humans across all divides to recognize our shared values and responsibilities to a world divinely entrusted to us. It is this sentiment of loving responsibility which is embedded in the word dharam, which the Sikhs use for the notion of religion or faith. The word Sikh, translated in English, means learner. According to the Sikh teachings, God created himself first, and then secondly, created his name and his divine spirit. And then finally, he went on to create Kudrat, or nature as we know it. And it is in this magnificent and awe-inspiring creation where the Creator himself dwells and delights. So this is a very important statement in this context, that God exists in each one of us and God resides within his own creation, be it whether it's on the land or on the sea or in the air. Hence, we are inspired to respect and love God's creation as God himself. The planet itself is referred to as Dharamsala, a place of worship. As we all know, our places of worship in churches, in mosques, in temples, at the Vatican, in Mecca, at the Golden Temple in India, are all considered and maintained to the highest standard of beauty, sanctity, and purity. Therefore, if the whole planet is a place of worship, then we as its inhabitants should respect the environment and all of nature with the same reverence and loving responsibility as we do to our holy shrines. The Sikhs praise the air and the atmosphere as their guru. The water, rivers, and the oceans are defined as the father. And the planet Earth, with all its bounty of resources, is seen as the mother. In their daily prayer, the Sikh asks for Sarbadda Pala, which translates to goodness and well-being for all forms of life. As the Earth's stewards and custodians, we have a responsibility to safeguard, heal, and protect the flourishing of all forms of life on the planet. But in real life, do we ever attain this high benchmark? Do we really practice these sentiments towards each other and everything around us? Or are we prone to succumb to the negative traits which are part of the human chemistry, such as vengeance, greed, possessiveness, and arrogance? The same negative traits then follow through leadership, translate and shape our societies, our corporations, and even our governments. It is the same negative traits that cause us to exploit the planet, to emit greenhouse gases, to commit massive deforestation, to engage in industries which create pollutant wastes, and so on. Everybody is in competition. Everyone wants more and more. The economics of profit maximization form the underlying objective for the corporate world. We are guided by our gurus to constantly look deeper into ourselves, to awaken and nurture the godly attributes of truth, contentment, compassion, integrity, wisdom, humility, and forgiveness. With these virtues and values, the Guru says that the mind will blossom green. We're talking about the green planet and the blue planet. What the Guru says is, first let's make our minds green. Once our inner ecology is green, we can move outside to our families, our friends, the corporations we work with, the societies we serve, and the governments to improve the outer ecology and hence move a step towards curbing the challenge of climate change. Our education system and our corporate models need to adopt religious and faith-based values to complement the very valid secular values to ensure a lasting change in inner and external ecologies. The advent of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the first of our 10 gurus, who founded the Sikh Dharam between 1469 to 1708, was attributed to a cry of help from a world anguishing under the strain of human arrogance, greed, ignorance, and lack of gratitude. Today, again, the cry for help is loud and clear, and that is why we have gathered here for this important summit. We have to be like the Sikh Sant Sipahi model, where we are both saints and eco-warriors. Empowered by spiritual values, we have to create that special bond between nature and humans. We have to shift from being exploiters of the earth's resources to its deeply indebted custodians if we are to leave behind any legacy for our descendants. Thank you, and God bless each one of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jaswinder. Isn't it refreshing to hear about a faith tradition that we don't usually know about, hear about in conferences like this? So thank you for that refreshing perspective. Think and do. That's going through my mind from our organizers' earlier advice. I want to move now to Mr. Immanuel Kiilu. Mr. Immanuel, I wonder if you would be able to speak to us about some of the practical projects that the youth are leading, not only at the environmental policy level, but how we're fostering capacity building. Because in order for the young people to reach such a high level, like the United Nations Environment Assembly, like the climate COPs, it has to start somewhere. According to you and the work that you're doing, what does this look like?
Okay, to begin with, I'll answer the first bit of the question. What programs and what activities young people are doing in regards to faith and environment. And I'll say, for example, there's a platform, and it's the major group that brings together all the children and youth to the UNEP process, that is the United Nations Environment Program, and the children and youth engage through that platform. Then when it comes to the faith perspective, where the young people of faith engage, they engage in the programs in the Eco-Faith Working Group, which is one of the working groups of the CYMG. That is the abbreviation of the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP. And also others engage in the Faith for Earth Coalition Youth Council, where it brings together young people from all faith traditions and represent their faith communities when it comes to various processes. To go on to some of the projects, there have been several projects that include hosting webinars and also having dialogues and conversations during UNEP campaigns and recognized international days. For example, like World Interfaith Harmony during the first week of, from 1st to 7th February. Then we also have International Day of Waste, which takes place in 30th March. And to come on which another international day, which is going to take place in coming days and in the next month, that is World Environment Day, with the theme under Beat Plastic Pollution. And also in regards to other activities, currently the Faith for Earth team and Faith for Earth Coalition Youth Council, they are having two programs which they are amplifying in the voices and contribution to societal discourse in regards to matters to do with climate. And to begin with is the Green Faith Festival, which is supporting the UNEP's work to highlight existing initiatives and to make the celebration of different faith festivals more sustainable, because as we all know, during various faith festivals, there's always consumption of various things, and sometimes there's always issues to come with waste. So we are supporting UNEP's work by highlighting some of ways on how we can live sustainably, ethically. And also in regards to another activity that is of vital and of significance, it's the Language of Our Generational Challenge. This is an initiative of UNEP's Faith for Earth Coalition Youth Council, and it's a global project that it's collecting and amplifying the stories of young people of faith who are engaged in climate advocacy. And this is being done through a survey, and currently it's ongoing. And for more information, you can check in the Faith for Earth social media platforms. And also, after this, I'll be able to share with you the link for this survey. You can share with the various young people from the various faith traditions and you come from, so that they can engage in what we are doing. And also, lastly, in regards to the activities, this year we are going to have a Global Youth Environment Assembly in UNEP headquarters in Nairobi, and also we are going to have United Nations Environment Assembly in the same place, that is UNEP in Nairobi, where the headquarters are. And we are going to engage young people of faith and regards to matters to do with and how they're addressing the triple planetary crisis, that is climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, and try to put and ensure their voices are embedded in the outcomes of these two multilateral processes. And when it comes to how, back to the moderator, could you highlight the second part of the other question kindly?
That's perfect, Immanuel. Do you have anything else from your intervention that you would like to share? A quick time check, 2 minutes.
Sure, okay. So one of the intervention which I had written down, it's a call to all stakeholders. This includes governments and even multilateral institutions and faith leaders and the international community to invest in youth ideas, in education, in addressing environment issues, and also in entrepreneurship, and also to include young people in these processes meaningfully in policy and also decision making, and also to support value-based education and faith-led climate storytelling to amplify the stories, because young people are already engaging, but also they need to also support, and the support can look like, and also can include maybe mentorship programs, and also that align with green jobs, science and technology, and even promoting ethical innovations in their various organizations. And lastly, is to ensure that youth are given a platform for youth participation in governance and even global processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. I would like to keep my promise. The gentleman at the back, if you would like to say something, but you only have 30 seconds, you can skip if you'd like.
Thank you. Good afternoon or good evening. So wherever you are. So I'm Melaku from Model Africa Union. I'm a founder and executive director. But I just this is a first time that I hear climate change at the perspective of a religious perspective. I know in our religion as well, as planting trees is one of the platform to be believed in. So whoever humans, they put plants, afforestation, making the plant, it is very important in all the religions. So I understand this thing is the first time. I am advocate, but in respect to this one, is the first time. And today is the time that I learned many times, maybe 1,000 times, everyone says like Ubuntu, 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 Ubuntu. So I maybe post these things. But my question is like, regarding to the climate change, people thought, sometimes they thought they thought that people who only have educated on climate perspective or the environmental, if you study environmental, you're the only who concerned about the environment. So I think we need to break this through, because I have seen even in Ethiopia, a lot of youth, a lot of people, only they concern related to the education. So they don't think that other peoples who are not concerned. So I think maybe Nikita also, she knows a lot of things about it, but we need to break out in related to the issues as well. And the second thing what I would like to see, and related to the G20, as we already hosted in November with the Indian Embassy, G20. So we do the young people to do a simulation and related to on the agendas of the G20, which was held in Brazil last year. So in related to that, what I want to rely on you, how much you guys, how much you guys, the speakers or the panelists, prioritize on the African perspective, on the not on the Agenda 2063. Climate is, we cannot do it on all, it's not our agenda, some of them. So how we can prioritize an African perspective as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, we were promised an extra 30 minutes. But I do want to respect your time, and I know it's getting pretty late. We'll go around the panelists one more time. If you have closing remarks, if you'd like to respond to a question that's been posed, I invite you to do that now for a maximum of 1 minute.
Just one.
Just one.
Well, I don't know how much I can say in 1 minute, but I want to be grateful for all the ideas that were raised, especially from religious perspective. We have all teachings in all faiths and even African traditions on how to stewardship about environment, and we need to take that seriously. Overall, there is also trauma. We need to ask, people suffered a lot in Africa due to conflict, due to environment-related displacements. Families disintegrate, they leave their traditional places, they live in different zones, they never come back together, and so on. The fact that G20, I think, is being organized or planned in Africa now, in South Africa, we need to take it with history in mind, with healing in mind, with religious and human values, with Ubuntu in mind, with a lot of restorative and we need to have this planetary approach. There is Achille Mbembe, professor in South Africa, he's from Cameroon. He has a beautiful approach called the planetary approach, where we all heal with our environment. And also, there is a challenge for us as an African generation. Ali Mazrui used to say, Africa offered a human being. The West offered science. The East offered God. For us, the continent that we take pride by offering human being, and we have Ubuntu and similar concepts. And now that this faith and, we need to listen to the experience of women and children and the trauma we need to listen to our ground, bring it to the policy, science, value. We need to have praxis approach, and we need to institutionalize this, and we need to take it with a sense of urgency that it requires. This is a moral responsibility. We need to handle it with a sense of urgency. Lives are suffering. We are losing generations, malnutrition, suffering, displacement, disconnection, and so on. So 1 minute is over, but I want us to listen to this issue very deeply with humanity at heart, not only Africa and so on, because we need to rehumanize, we need to have integral, inclusive human development, psychological, poverty alleviation, all of that. Sorry for taking long, it's because...
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and that was very insightful. We need to do all these things. Can I conclude that the how we do it is to come and speak to you after this session? Okay, great. Over to you.
Thank you. Beautiful. So I'm going to make this really quick, but probably take up a little bit more space because, women need to be seen and heard. So I'm going to start with reading a few names. Mingo Matthew Rolle, Diana Johnson Rolle and their children, Joseph Paris, January Dennis, Elizabeth Ann, Theophilus M., Julius, Leslie Anderson, August. These are the names of my family members who were born as enslaved Africans in the Bahamas, okay? In 1833, 3 years prior to Bahamians being aware that chattel slavery had been abolished, 20 million pounds at that time in 1833, which is equivalent to $16.5 billion in today's money, was paid to settle the slave holdings to Lord Rolle and all the masters of enslaved Africans because we were property. I want that to be explicitly clear. African spirituality is illegal in the Bahamas, and I'm getting so emotional because when he talks about 25 feet of seawater, my people, do you know what it is to have your islands 25 feet, children washed out, not $3.4 billion of damage overnight? And you say no reparations? And you say no repatriation? Am I supposed to go to the United States? Oh no, I cannot go to the United States, my friend. That is not an option. We must come home with dignity and respect, with resources. We must have education systems that support us. We require governance systems that are not still the same chattel slavery design systems that still govern the entire Commonwealth, which is most of Africa. Because when King Charles has to sign for my ambassador to be appointed, oh, guess what? We don't have an ambassador in Ethiopia, right? When King Charles has to sign for our ambassadors to be placed everywhere, my brother, we are not free. And it is our responsibility, as people who see themselves as leaders in interfaith communities to create spaces and solutions. So I don't know where your humanity is, but it is my birthright to have reparations. It is my birthright to be able to return to this land of origin. So climate change, if you cannot see the linkages between the economy that drives the climate crisis, the people who have no money. I am here today because I am a privileged person. I have born to a Bahamian father, an Irish mother who happened to meet in Canada. So what that means is that I have mobility. I have mobility because I can move through the United States with my my Canadian passport in a way that none of my cousins or anyone else can. So we need solutions that benefit all our peoples, and we are one people. So I will conclude with saying, I run a school, it's called the Grouper School. It's a climate solution school. It's global in nature and grounded in local communities. I would love for each of your communities to be part of it. This is how we upskill intergenerationally to ensure that communities can become custodians of the technology that gives them the voice so that my people can actually speak and respond to comments that dismiss our humanity.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I guess let's go that way. My bad.
Thank you. This is a reasoning. We're reasoning as a human family. And this human family is totally dysfunctional today as we sit here and speak and reason. And we've come up as faith-based and ethical organizations with a proposal and a solution to this dysfunctional human family. And that is the African Union's theme for this year, justice. It's justice that we seek. No justice, no peace. So what we are proposing here is an opportunity for the human family to reconcile. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it sounds when we call for reparations, when we call for repatriation. This is the justice. Whether it's going to be secured or not is up to mankind, and in particular, the developing nations. So let us not argue on the justice. It's up to the perpetrators of this injustice to take up this opportunity and sincerely apologize. With apology comes responsibility. So we just don't want to receive lip service. When you apologize, you must take on full responsibilities. And just to close, we are presenting a proposal to make Africa and the sixth region and ultimately the world green and blue again. So this is a project that our organization has already presented to the Ethiopian government and the African Union that has been endorsed. But this project is on pause. Why? No money. So this is our opportunity. Let us all agree to put into action now this project by starting climate-resilient green economic communities throughout Africa, throughout the sixth region and the world, linking them up with rail and road. Action now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ambrose, I would like to put you in touch with the Srimad Rachanda Dharampur Mission. They are an organization in India that are doing exactly what you've just spoken about. So I think it's an enriching learning opportunity to connect with organizations globally about the work that they're doing, learn from best practice, what's working for them and with them, and share your experiences as well with them. Participants, panelists, I do want to recognize a moment that just happened here. And my one comment is simply to listen and to share with an empathetic outlook on what different realities people are going through. On the one hand, there's a situation where, in spite of being in such a connected world, we are so disconnected. And we don't hear about these authentic stories and experiences that people, our brothers and sisters around the world go through. And even to recognize how extreme they are. On the other hand, we do need to recognize that the lived experiences, having to operate in this modernized world, leaves us increasingly disconnected. But this is the connection that faith organizations bring to you in whatever religious tradition. We heard it from our friend, remind me your name, please? Hatim. When the Baha'is engage, it's through unity, through a common sacredness of nature that each religion shares. It's through learning, so that we are able to learn from each other's experiences continuously and of sharing. But let's also compound that with compassion, with love, with unity. And so I hope that this panel discussion was able to bring out the key issues of climate change, nature and biodiversity loss, and chemical and waste pollution. At UNEP, we refer to this as the triple environmental planetary crisis. And these are part of the wider poly crisis. And we need to start as faith organization expanding our programs, realizing that nature-based solutions are such a critical way to reach people, achieve economic progress, and be able to connect with one another across our multiple divides. We have two more speakers that need to conclude. It is 6:45, so if you would like to remain with us, please feel free. I will pass Immanuel, Mr. Immanuel, if you can please go ahead with your concluding remark. And participants, if you feel the need that you need to leave at this point, please feel free.
Mandela, due to the time factor, and he once said that sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great, and you can be that generation. Think about it. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we missed on the question you were going to raise for my, did we not have the time? But I'll quickly highlight on that. I was going to mention that the Sikh Council of Africa has a network of youngsters which work for various organizations under its helm. Recently, a team of youngsters were running an enterprise T3, which has established Kenya's first bottle-to-bottle recycling facility with a capacity of 40 tons per day. Zero hunger from Langar is another one. Langar means free kitchen in the Sikh faith, and over 1,500 needy school children in 4 schools are served with meals on a daily basis. So these are some of the programs that are being run. Our youth throughout Africa are regularly engaging in disaster and famine relief projects, just like the Sikhs all over the world. Whenever there is a flood or there is an earthquake or there's fires, the Sikh community is always going out with their help. Ecosytems is a global Sikh environment organization, and the Kenya chapter was established in 2017, and they have carried out immense amount of tree planting exhibitions and campaigns on the environment. So these are the few I could think about, Azmaira, in relation to your question, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to our esteemed panelists for your insightful remarks. There is a lot to follow up on, a lot to discuss. Let's continue that this evening, tomorrow, before we head out to our respective countries, and over email if you would like to connect on any of the projects mentioned today. Good evening, everybody. Take care.
Just do it, yeah.
I achieved what I wanted to achieve, and you understood